Today, we'll delve into the dynamic world of Indonesian politics and explore the recent wave of policy shifts. With a multitude of issues vying for attention, it's crucial to pinpoint key areas of change that will shape Indonesia's future. While navigating new policies can be challenging, often requiring adjustments and compromises, these shifts present an opportunity for positive transformation. The central question remains, how will the newly appointed cabinet lead Indonesia through this period of transition? How will they address internal pressures from diverse interest groups while simultaneously managing external influences on the global stage? It's important to remember that predicting the future is complex. However, by analyzing these policy shifts and engaging in thoughtful discussion, we can gain a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing Indonesia today. Stay tuned and always stay safe.
Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? Today we're heading to Indonesia to check out the current political scene. We're talking power shifts, controversies, and a big question. Is Indonesia maybe at a crossroads? Democracy? Or something else?
It really is a fascinating time for Indonesia, isn't it? You've got this push for economic progress, but then there are concerns about democratic backsliding, and of course the long-standing issues, corruption and a powerful military. It all adds up to quite a complex picture.
No kidding. And where better to start than with the president himself, President Prabowo Subianto. He's making some waves, to say the least. Bold proposals, some might even say controversial, like the idea of pardoning people convicted of corruption if they just return the stolen funds.
Yeah.
That's got people talking.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. I mean, on the surface, it sounds kind of practical, a way to get back some of those state losses. But it does raise some big questions about, the rule of law. Does it send the message that corruption, well, it can be bought? And what about the precedent it sets for future cases?
Definitely makes you think about the long game, huh? And it's not just the pardon proposal either. He's also talking about changing how regional elections work, moving away from direct voting. Instead, letting local legislatures appoint leaders.
That's raised a few eyebrows. Now, supporters, they say it could save money and make the whole process more efficient. They even point to, neighboring countries with similar systems. But critics worry it'll concentrate power too much and reduce accountability. It's a move that could really impact the whole democratic process.
And speaking of accountability, we've got to talk about the Brown Party controversy.
Yeah.
The Indonesian National Police are facing some serious allegations. Election meddling, abuse of power, the whole 9 yards. The PDIP party's been really vocal, accusing the police of favoring certain candidates aligned with the ruling coalition. They're even calling for the removal of the national police chief.
Oh, yeah, this goes right to the core of those democratic integrity concerns. I mean, if the police, who should be neutral, are seen as favoring certain political players, well, it just erodes trust in the whole system. It's a huge issue, and it needs attention, for sure.
It really does, and it kind of ties into this bigger picture of corruption and accountability that's been plaguing Indonesia for a while. It's interesting to see how this is playing out with the courts, too. Now, there's a ruling that allows the Corruption Eradication Commission, the KPK, to investigate corruption within the military. That seems like a huge shift, considering how much autonomy they've had.
Oh, it's absolutely significant. For a long time, the military, they basically operated in their own world, especially when it came to criminal cases. But now the KPK can actually look into corruption within the armed forces. It'll be very interesting to see what happens next, whether there's any pushback from the military,
I can imagine some folks in the military might not be thrilled about this. Feels like there could be a power struggle brewing.
Yeah, definitely something to watch closely. I wouldn't be surprised to see, procedural roadblocks or attempts to limit what information the KPK can access. The stakes are high, and this new dynamic could really change things for transparency and accountability,
Okay, so we've got potential pardons for corrupt officials, proposed changes to the election system, and now a potential showdown between the KPK and the military. It definitely feels like Indonesian politics is, well, it's in flux.
Absolutely, yeah. And in the middle of all this, you've got the government pushing for some serious economic growth. They're aiming for 8%. Can you believe that? Their focus is on industrial expansion, using local minerals. That's where the new capital city comes in, Nusantara, and the massive glass and solar panel manufacturing project on Rempang Island.
Wow, these projects sound like they could be game changers for the Indonesian economy. But are there any, downsides to this rapid development?
Well, one thing is it's causing land conflicts. Like on Rempang Island, residents are protesting. They're being relocated for the manufacturing project, and they're not happy. They want fair compensation for their land. And they're raising concerns about the environmental impact, too.
It's tough to hear that these projects are impacting local communities like that. Seems like a real tension between, economic ambition and the rights of the people who might be displaced or negatively affected.
It's a classic dilemma, isn't it? The government says these projects will bring jobs and boost the economy, but critics argue it's coming at too high a cost for some communities. The question is, can Indonesia achieve its economic goals without, sacrificing the well-being of its people?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And it speaks to
Totally does.
the complex balancing act
Absolutely.
that Indonesia is facing right now.
Yeah,
So much to unpack here.
there is.
We're just getting started.
We are. A lot of moving parts, for sure.
Yeah, and to make things even more interesting, there's been a big shakeup in the political scene. Former President Joko Widodo, Jokowi, and his family. They've been expelled from the PDIP.
Whoa, that's a political earthquake if I've ever seen one. Jokowi was incredibly popular. What happened?
Right. What led to this split with his own party?
Well, it seems like it all goes back to Jokowi's decision to support Prabowo in the presidential election. That didn't go over well with the PDIP leadership. Not at all. And then there are those allegations about Jokowi being involved in constitutional court revisions. That basically cleared the way for his son, Gibran, to run as Prabowo's VP.
So the PDIP felt betrayed.
That's definitely the feeling, yeah. It just goes to show how much personal loyalties and political maneuvering really drive Indonesian politics.
It's a game of chess, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So what does this mean for Jokowi? Is this the end of his political influence?
I doubt it, actually. There's already talk of him joining a new party. Both Gerindra and Golkar have expressed interest. This could really shake things up and have a big impact on the 2029 elections.
Wow, so this expulsion really throws a wrench in the works, huh?
You could say that?
It'll be fascinating to see what happens next. And it's not just at the national level either. We're seeing these power struggles play out within NU as well, Indonesia's largest Islamic organization. Chairman Yahya Cholil Saquaf is facing calls to step down over allegations of political bias.
Right, another example of these simmering political tensions. Some NU clerics are unhappy with Saquaf. They see him as being too aligned with certain political figures. It highlights how difficult it is to stay neutral in a country where religion and politics are so intertwined.
Yeah, a delicate balance for sure. So we've got Indonesia trying to balance economic development with the needs of local communities, navigating corruption and accountability, and dealing with these shifting political alliances. That's a lot on their plate.
It is, and we haven't even talked about the security landscape yet. The intelligence community is having to adapt to all sorts of new threats. Non-state actors like terrorist groups are upping their game. They're using more sophisticated intelligence tactics.
So it's not just your classic state versus state espionage anymore.
Nope, not anymore. The old playbook is becoming obsolete. There's a need to shift from just detecting threats to actively preventing them. This more proactive counterintelligence approach is crucial, especially with intelligence gathering in the private sector becoming so much more advanced.
It sounds like Indonesia's intelligence agencies have their work cut out for them.
They do. They need to develop new strategies and capabilities to keep up with these evolving threats. The stakes are high. Falling behind is not an option.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got a president proposing some controversial policies, a major political party ousting a popular former president, allegations of police interference in elections, a landmark ruling that gives the KPK power to scrutinize the military, and a rapidly evolving security landscape. My head is spinning.
I know, right? But here's the thing. All these threads, they connect back to that big question we started with. Is Indonesia at a crossroads? Are we seeing a shift away from democratic norms? Or will the country find a way to strengthen its institutions?
That's the question on everyone's mind, isn't it?
It is.
And while we can't predict the future, we can definitely look at the trends, analyze the potential consequences of the choices being made. What's clear is that Indonesia is at a pivotal moment, and the decisions made now will have a big impact on its future.
Absolutely. And one factor that will shape that future is the role of public discourse and citizen engagement. Social media has become so powerful in Indonesia. It's a platform for expressing dissent, organizing protests, holding those in power accountable.
So it's become a vital tool for democratic participation.
Exactly. Look at the Brown Party controversy or the allegations of election manipulation. A lot of the outrage and calls for reform are happening online. Social media has given citizens a voice, and they're using it.
It's a reminder that democracy is more than just elections. It's about active citizenship, critical thinking, holding leaders accountable.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's why what's happening in Indonesia is so important.
It is. They're grappling with some of the biggest questions facing democracies all over the world. How to balance security and freedom, address corruption and inequality, and make sure the people's voices are heard.
It's a reminder that what happens in Indonesia, well, it doesn't stay in Indonesia. Their choices have ripple effects, throughout the region and even globally.
Oh, absolutely. It's a big player. And it's interesting to see how these internal political dynamics are affecting Indonesia's foreign policy. There's a lot of talk about whether President Prabowo, with his background and his focus on domestic issues, can he really represent Indonesia effectively on the world stage?
So some doubts about his ability to handle international diplomacy.
Well, some experts think he might need to delegate more to, seasoned diplomats in the foreign ministry. They point out that Indonesia needs a really nuanced approach to handle the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Maritime security, economic partnerships, regional stability. These issues require a deep understanding of geopolitics, and some aren't sure Prabowo has that experience yet.
Makes sense that people are watching closely to see how he navigates all this. Indonesia's role in the region is crucial.
Exactly, and one of the key tests will be ASEAN. The organization itself is facing some internal challenges. And Indonesia, as a founding member and the biggest economy in Southeast Asia, well, they have a responsibility to step up and lead.
So Indonesia's walking a tightrope here, managing those internal pressures, while also trying to be a leader on the international stage.
It's a tough balancing act, and it really speaks to those bigger themes we've been talking about. Indonesia's at a crossroads, facing questions about democracy, accountability, development, security. How they handle these challenges will have a huge impact, not just on their own people, but on the whole region.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Indonesian politics, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What should they be keeping an eye on?
I think the most important thing to remember is that Indonesia is at a turning point. The choices they make now, the leaders, the citizens, will determine whether they keep moving towards democracy and progress, or whether they get pulled in a different direction.
It sounds like Indonesia's story is far from over. A story of challenges and opportunities. A nation trying to find its place in the world.
It's a story worth following, that's for sure. What happens in Jakarta has implications for everyone.
So stay tuned, folks. The next chapter is just beginning. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Indonesian politics. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.